Rachel Morgan was a young woman who had just graduated with top honors in community pharmacy from a small university on the outskirts of New York. For many, such an achievement would be a strong stepping stone toward success. But for Rachel, it was merely the beginning of a difficult journey. After her father passed away during her freshman year, Rachel became the sole breadwinner of the family. She balanced her studies with part-time jobs to care for her mother, Susan, who suffered from chronic heart disease, and her younger brother Ethan, who was only 10 years old. Rachel believed that with enough hard work, things would eventually improve. But reality was far from kind. Every dollar she earned came at the cost of sweat, tears, and the fading years of her youth. Still, she never gave up hope. She made a promise to herself. She would lift her family out of poverty. What she didn't know was that the turning point in her life would come not from her own plans, but from a stranger, and an offer that seemed too impossible to believe. One September afternoon, Rachel was riding her bike across the city, delivering prescription medications to clients. She stopped at a small park to catch her breath and eat the cold lunch she had packed from home. Sitting next to her was her roommate, Samantha Blake, a witty, sharp-tongued girl who somehow always knew how to lift Rachel's spirits. Do you ever feel like, no matter how hard you work, you still can't escape poverty? Rachel asked as she bit into her stale sandwich. Sam was about to answer when they were interrupted by a violent coughing fit nearby. An elderly man had choked after popping an entire throat lozenge into his mouth without chewing. Rachel rushed over immediately, handing him water and gently patting his back until he calmed down. "Thank you, young lady," he said, still catching his breath. "That was careless of me. I guess I was too hungry to think straight." Rachel smiled. "You should take smaller bites, and maybe don't eat candy like that next time." The old man chuckled, his eyes gleaming with a mix of warmth and mischief. "What do you do for a living?" "Pharmacist, just graduated, still unemployed," she said half-jokingly. He fell silent for a moment, then asked more seriously, "If you had a chance to change your life completely right now, would you take it?" Both Rachel and Sam looked at him, puzzled. Before they could respond, the man pulled out a sleek business card and handed it to Rachel. "My name is William Carter. I own one of the largest healthcare corporations in the country. If you're open to an offer that could change your life, call me." With that, he walked away, leaving the girls stunned, the card still warm in Rachel's hand. The name matched perfectly with the founder of a top-tier chain of private hospitals across the state. Rachel turned to Sam, her heart pounding. It felt like something bigger than she'd ever imagined had just knocked on her door. Rachel never thought she would make the call, but 3 days later she found herself sitting in William Carter's sleek office, facing the calm eyes of the old man. He wasted no time. He wanted her to marry his grandson. James Carter, a successful software engineer credited with developing the first intelligent hospital management system in the state. If she agreed, Rachel would receive $3 million and lifelong financial support for her family. William made it clear that having a child wasn't a requirement, but added bluntly, if the two of you end up having one, even better. Rachel was furious at first. She wasn't a product to be traded. But then she looked at her mother lying unconscious in a dimly lit hospital room, and at Ethan, skipping gym class again because he had no decent shoes. The weight of reality crushed her pride. Days later, she said yes. The wedding was quick, held at City Hall. James didn't say much, just a cold nod as he signed the papers. He was the quiet type, clearly unhappy with the arrangement. That very night, he rolled his suitcase into another room. Rachel wasn't surprised. She had prepared herself to live like strangers. "You're here for the money. I don't need to pretend to be polite," James stated flatly. Rachel didn't argue. She quietly unpacked, divided the room without complaint. But life under the same roof has a way of creating unexpected moments. One night when Rachel came down with a high fever, James, despite being in the middle of an online meeting, rushed to bring her water and medication, silently fussing over her as if his cool demeanor had cracked. "Aren't you afraid I'll get you sick?" she mumbled. "I just don't want to be blamed for letting my wife die under my roof," he replied, though the concern in his eyes betrayed his tone. They continued to argue over trivial things, air conditioning settings, oversalted food. But hidden beneath those daily clashes was something softer beginning to take root. Rachel never asked for affection. All she wanted was respect. But each time James quietly did something for her, left vitamins by her bedside, ordered her favorite takeout, or simply waited up when she got home late, her heart stirred a little more. She wasn't sure if it was love, but she was certain James wasn't as cold as he seemed. And maybe he was struggling with something inside himself, too. That night, the air was cool and crisp. Rachel sat alone on an old wooden chair in the backyard of the mansion, holding a cup of warm tea between her hands. Her eyes quietly followed the moon, partially hidden behind the rustling leaves. After a long day, this was her rare moment to simply breathe. The soft creak of the door made her turn. James stepped outside, a bottle of red wine already opened in his hand. He didn't say anything at first, just sat down across from her and poured himself a glass. "Would you like some?" he asked in a low voice. Rachel nodded. "Just a little. I'm a terrible drinker." A long silence passed between them. Only the gentle wind and the soft clink of glass filled the space. "I didn't expect to feel this tired," James said at last, his gaze distant. "As a kid, I always thought if I was smart enough, capable enough, I'd never feel lonely." Rachel looked at him quietly. "I know that feeling. Every time I feel like giving up, I just tell myself, hold on a little longer. No one's coming to save you." James let out a soft laugh. It wasn't a happy one. Their eyes met. For the first time, there was no sarcasm, no guarded distance. He leaned forward slightly, his fingers brushing hers. "Rachel." She didn't pull away. Under the night breeze, James leaned in and kissed her. Slowly, gently, as if afraid he was crossing a line. But Rachel didn't push him back. She closed her eyes and let herself be soft for once. That night, they didn't sleep in separate rooms. The next morning, Rachel woke up in James's arms. Sunlight peeked through the curtains, causing her to squint. A flicker of confusion crossed her face as she realized where she was, her head resting on his chest, both under the same blanket, his arm loosely wrapped around her, even in sleep. She shifted slightly, and at that moment, James stirred awake. He didn't say anything. He simply looked at her, not cold, not awkward, just quietly, as if he too was trying to process what had happened between them. Neither of them mentioned the night before. Life resumed as usual, busy, careful, avoiding each other's gaze. But something between them had quietly shifted. A few weeks later, Rachel began feeling nauseous in the mornings. She brushed it off as stress, until, one day, while organizing medication in the house, she froze. Her heart slowed as she realized her period was over 2 weeks late. That night, she bought a pregnancy test and locked herself in the bathroom. 2 pink lines, clear as day. Rachel sat down on the floor, heart pounding. She didn't know if she was scared or overwhelmed. Motherhood was never part of the plan, especially not in a marriage like this, a marriage without the promise of love. That evening, when James returned home, Rachel was waiting in the living room, gripping the first ultrasound print she had received that afternoon. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low. James paused, then sat down across from her. I'm pregnant," she said, placing the paper on the table. He stared at it. His reaction wasn't what she had expected. No panic, no frustration. Instead, something in his expression softened. Then, he smiled. Small, but real. "We're having a baby?" Rachel nodded, eyes slightly red. "I don't know how you feel about it. I just thought you should know." James reached across and held her hand. "I don't know if I'll be a good father, but I know one thing. I won't walk away. Not now." Pregnancy had changed Rachel, but it changed James even more. He became more careful, more thoughtful, paying attention to even the smallest details. Every day, he checked if she had taken her vitamins. reminded the chef not to prepare anything risky for the pregnancy. Though neither of them spoke openly about their feelings, Rachel's heart quietly softened with every small act of care. They were starting to feel like a real family, but that happiness was short-lived. At 7 months, one night, Rachel suddenly clutched her belly, her face drained of color. Blood trickled down her legs. James ran to her, lifted her into his arms, and shouted for the driver. She was rushed to the nearest hospital. A doctor called James into a consultation room once Rachel had been wheeled into emergency surgery. His face was grave. "She's suffering from severe placental abruption. If we don't operate immediately, both mother and baby are at risk. But the baby is premature. Lungs haven't fully developed. We need to know, if the worst happens, who should we prioritize?" The question hit James like a dagger to the heart. "No, it can't be. Both of them can't be in danger," he stammered. "We'll do our best to save both, but I need to know in case of an emergency." James stood frozen, his hands trembling at his sides. His breathing grew shallow. In his mind, every moment with Rachel rushed back. The first time she smiled at him, the quiet nights they shared, her laughter, even the way she used to mock his serious face. His throat tightened. He could barely speak, but finally, with a voice cracked by fear and love, he whispered, "Save her. Please. Save Rachel first." Time passed slowly. When the doctor finally emerged hours later, James leapt to his feet. The doctor's face was soaked in sweat, but his eyes were bright. "They're both stable. She fought hard. The baby is weak, but responding well. We'll monitor him in the NICU." James broke down in tears. He didn't care about the people around him, didn't care who saw him cry. When Rachel woke up, James was at her bedside, gripping her hand tightly. The doctor said, "You chose me over the baby," she whispered, eyes glossy with emotion. James kissed the back of her hand. "I knew you wouldn't give up. I couldn't imagine a world without you. You're my family. You're everything." Rachel wept, not from pain, not from fear, but because, for the very first time, someone had chosen her, not for what she could give or what she had endured, but simply because she mattered. 8 weeks later, Rachel walked out of the hospital with quieter steps but a louder heart. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a mother, a wife, and for the first time, someone with a future she dared to believe in. The baby, born premature, fragile, but resilient, remained in neonatal care. James named him Caleb James Carter, affectionately called CJ, a name that meant a gift from God. Each morning, Rachel sat beside the incubator, whispering stories to her son about her favorite muffins, the puppy he would one day have, and the dreams she once believed were out of reach. James rarely said much. He often stood behind her in silence, but sometimes he'd press his hand gently against the glass and murmur, "Daddy's here." When CJ was finally strong enough to come home, the entire mansion came alive. Susan, Rachel's mother, cried tears of joy as she held her grandson for the first time. Ethan, now a lively little boy, proudly taped a welcome home sign to the fridge and drew a picture of their new family of 3. Rachel and James decided to hold a small wedding at the church. No contracts, no obligations, just 2 people who had grown through pain, found respect, and chosen each other for real. The ceremony took place on a calm autumn afternoon. Among the small crowd sat one important guest in the front row, William Carter, the elderly man who had quietly set their fate in motion. After the ceremony, William slowly approached them and took Rachel's hand, the same young woman who once delivered medicine on a rusty bike. "You didn't disappoint me," he said, his voice proud. "But more than strength, you taught my stubborn grandson how to love." Rachel squeezed his hand gently. "I don't even know how to thank you. If you hadn't given me that chance." "I didn't give it," William interrupted softly. "You claimed it. The miracle came from your sacrifice and courage." They hugged, briefly but meaningfully. As William walked away, Rachel watched his silhouette fade and silently thanked the strange twist of fate that brought them together. That evening, in the backyard, the place where they once shared their first kiss, James holds CJ in his arms. Rachel sat on the porch, sipping her herbal tea, her eyes full of quiet joy. The pain of the past now felt like a distant breeze. What remained was peace. She once asked herself, were all the sacrifices worth it? Now, watching her baby's laughter, the man who once seemed heartless now making silly faces to calm his son, she understood. Every hardship, every tear led her here. A new beginning, a real family, and a truth she carried in her heart from that day on. Life doesn't always give us what we ask for, but sometimes it gives us exactly what we need in the most unexpected way. If this story touched your heart even just a little, don't forget to support us. Like, share, and hit that subscribe button to follow more unforgettable love stories, only on Noah's Stories. Got thoughts or feelings? Drop them in the comments. We'd love to hear your voice. Because here at Noah's Stories, every story has a soul. And maybe the next one will feel like it was written just for you.